It's crunch time for Democrats with the Iowa caucuses now just 5 days away. Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden are the current frontrunners, according to recent polls, with Amy Klobuchar, Elizabeth Warren, and Pete Buttigieg trailing closely behind.
President Obama's former speechwriter and Pod Save America co-host Jon Favreau held a series of focus groups with voters who Democrats still need to win over. The highlights are featured in the new season of his other podcast, The Wilderness. And Jon Favreau joins us here with more. Good to see you.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
So let's first start. We're going to talk about The Wilderness and the reaction that you've had from talking to voters on the campaign trail in certain swing states. But I want to start with the impeachment against, or the impeachment allegations against President Trump. Mm-hmm. How concerned are voters about what is happening in D.C.? Are they even paying attention?
They might be paying attention in terms of, like, it's on their television screens, but I don't think they are paying too close attention. I did the focus groups in late October as all the Trump administration officials were being deposed for the House. And the only thing anyone could say about it was, I heard there's a lot of witnesses talking for a really long time. The length of the testimony really broke through.
Are they even aware of the allegations against President Trump?
They would say,
phone call.
They would say things like, "I heard he did something bad in Ukraine."
Wow.
Yeah, that was late October, but it's yeah.
But so let me just ask one follow-up to that. So they hear that President Trump did something bad in Ukraine. The question that I have is, are they aware that the president is making allegations against Vice President Biden, or the former Vice President?
It's interesting. When I asked about the Democratic candidates, there was a few people out of the 40 I talked to who said, when I asked them, what do you think of when you think of Joe Biden? They said Hunter. A couple said Hunter.
Hunter.
Yeah.
Okay. So did they talk to you about why they weren't sort of tuning in? Because we keep leading into this impeachment coverage by reminding everyone of how historic and important it is.
Yeah.
Why are they not interested?
I think it's because they know how it's going to end.
Right.
In fact, you know, one of the dangers, political dangers for Trump, and especially the Republicans in Congress, and this came up with the voters I spoke to in Arizona, who were Romney Clinton voters, so they're former Republicans and they all say, I just want to find a Republican who will tell this guy no. I just can't believe that they, no matter what he tells them to do, they do. There's no independence from the president whatsoever. Right. So that is one danger there.
So I'm going to ask a question that Vlad asked earlier. When you hear about these polls that say people really want to see witnesses, you know, in this impeachment trial, which means it's going to drag on, you know, even longer, you think what?
I think it's an intuitive answer to a question, should there be witnesses at a trial? And someone says, yeah, of course there should be. Like, it's just common sense for most people.
Right.
How much they'll punish Republicans for voting against witnesses if they do that we don't know.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about your interaction with voters in swing states, because these people, even though they're not paying that much attention, even though they may not know all the candidates, they are intending to vote in the 2020 election.
Every single one of them.
So you spoke to a group of voters who had voted for President Obama and then switched, or then voted for President Trump in 2016.
Yeah.
How are they feeling now, A, about their vote, and what they're thinking about doing in 2020?
So I talked to 10 people in that category. They also voted for a Democratic candidate in 2018. So they're gettable voters for Democrats.
Okay, so they
came back to Democrat.
in that blue wave.
And then, so 2 of them are going to vote for Donald Trump again. The other 8 don't think they will. But they're not sure if they're going to vote for a Democrat. They're still sort of undecided right now.
So they don't think they'll vote for Trump, but they're not sure they want to vote for a Democrat.
They said it depends on who the nominee is. They said they want to see, they don't know much about the primary just yet. But basically their reasoning is, we voted for Obama because Obama was change. One person actually said he wasn't an old white guy. And then that same person voted for Donald Trump.
Because he was change.
Because he was change too. And then they voted for Tony Evers, the governor of Wisconsin, in 2018, because he was a change from Scott Walker, who they didn't like either. And basically what they said is, we keep voting for these people because we hope for change, and our lives don't really change that much for the better. And I'm still worried about my healthcare costs. I'm still worried about sending my kid to school, and there's going to be gun violence. I'm worried about my retirement. So you hear all these problems that they keep having, and when they turn on the television, they think politics is people who are paid to yell at each other.
I thought it was interesting that when you asked about a lot of the people in your focus group in the different states about President Trump, their criticism was kind of surface. I mean, they didn't like they thought he was embarrassing. They didn't like all this tweeting. They actually didn't talk about his policies.
It was all character.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And here's why. People are so cynical about politics, they have now divorced politicians and the decisions they make from the issues that they actually care about. So on one hand, they'll talk about healthcare and gun control and climate and education, and they really care about those issues. And then they'll talk about politicians as characters, because they don't even trust them to do anything anymore.
Which is why President Trump, a lot of people have called him, he calls himself a very stable genius, but a lot of people have said there's some kind of political genius to his strategy, and that he is all surface, and that is what people seem to react to. I wonder, though, with the internal battle going on in the Democratic Party, where you have Bernie Sanders is surging in Iowa, and he may actually win that caucus. Joe Biden was asked on the trail yesterday, if Bernie Sanders is the candidate, the nominee, will you support him? And he sort of said, we got to get behind whoever is the nominee, right? But the fact that Bernie Sanders, or any of these Democrats may be popular within the Democratic Party, who their number one goal is defeating Donald Trump.
Right.
What does that mean for those voters that you talk to? Are they going to get behind a Bernie Sanders campaign if they voted for President Trump and they're not sure what they want to do in 2020?
They certainly won't get behind a Democratic campaign just because, not like regular Democratic voters. But it's interesting. The voters in Arizona, who were obviously a little more moderate and conservative because they used to be Romney voters, they expressed concern about the Democratic Party moving too far to the left, socialism, that kind of stuff. The Obama-Trump voters in Milwaukee, there were a couple people there who liked Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, of course.
And a couple people
who
said that in the primary back in 2016, they voted for Bernie Sanders and then they voted for Donald Trump.
And does the party risk for Democrats who say, Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren isn't really the type of Democrat that we think can beat Donald Trump, do they risk seeing the same thing that Republicans saw when Trump was rising in the polls, dismissing him and realizing afterwards that Bernie Sanders is a movement, much like President or candidate Trump was?
It's certainly possible, and it's early to tell. And like I said, the difficult part for Democrats is there's so many different kinds of voters who are cross-pressured. So I wonder if those Arizona voters, if faced with a choice between Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, would say, both are too extreme for me, I can't do either. But then I wonder if we had Joe Biden, if those Obama-Trump voters in Milwaukee would say, he seems too much like part of the problem, same Washington. So you just don't know. Different candidates appeal to different kinds of voters.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you,
Always
guys.
great to have
Appreciate
you.
it.